ಸಂಸ್ಥಾಪಕಾಯ ಚ ಧರ್ಮಸ್ಯ ಸರ್ವಧರ್ಮಸ್ವರೂಪಿಣೇ ಅವತಾರವರಿಷ್ಠಾಯ ರಾಮಕೃಷ್ಣಾಯ ತೇ ನಮಃ. ಭಕ್ತಿಯ ವಿಷಯವಾಗಿ ನಾವು ಪ್ರತಿ ಶನಿವಾರ ನಾನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋ ಪ್ರವಚನದಲ್ಲಿ ಅದನ್ನು ಕುರಿತು ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇವೆ. ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ವಿವೇಕಾನಂದರು ಧರ್ಮದ ಸಾರವನ್ನು 3 ವಾಕ್ಯಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಮೊದಲನೆಯದು, ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ಆತ್ಮನಲ್ಲಿಯೂ ಪವಿತ್ರತೆ ಅಂತಸ್ಥವಾಗಿದೆ. ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ಆತ್ಮನಲ್ಲಿಯೂ ಅಂದರೆ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ಜೀವಿಯಲ್ಲಿಯೂ ಕೂಡ ಪ್ಯೂರಿಟಿ, ಪಾವಿತ್ರ್ಯತೆ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಾಭಾವಿಕವಾದ ಧರ್ಮ. ಎರಡನೆಯದು, ಅಂತಸ್ಥವಾಗಿರುವ ಈ ದಿವ್ಯತೆಯನ್ನು ಬಾಹ್ಯ ಮತ್ತು ಆಂತರಿಕ ಪ್ರಕೃತಿಯ ನಿಗ್ರಹದಿಂದ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಗೊಳಿಸುವುದೇ ಗುರಿಯಾಗಿದೆ. ಇಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಪವಿತ್ರಾತ್ಮರಾದ ನಾವು ಪಾವಿತ್ರ್ಯತೆ ಇಲ್ಲದೆ ಬಂಧನಕ್ಕೆ ಒಳಗಾಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇವೆ. ಆ ದಿವ್ಯತೆಯನ್ನು ಹೇಗೆ ಪ್ರಕಾಶ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಬಾಹ್ಯ ಅಂದರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಹೊರಗಿನ ಪ್ರಕೃತಿ, ಪಂಚಭೂತಗಳಿಂದ ಉಂಟಾದ ಈ ಶರೀರಾದಿಗಳನ್ನು ಮತ್ತು ಮನಸ್ಸು, ಬುದ್ಧಿ, ಅಹಂಕಾರ, ಈ ಚಿತ್ತದ ಅಂಗಗಳನ್ನು ನಿಗ್ರಹಿಸುವುದರಿಂದ ಈ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಇರುವ ದಿವ್ಯತೆ ತಾನಾಗಿ ತಾನೇ ವ್ಯಕ್ತವಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅದು ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ಜೀವಿಯ ಗುರಿ. ಈ ಗುರಿಯನ್ನು ಹೇಗೆ ಸಾಧಿಸಬೇಕು ಅಂತ 3ನೆಯ ಪಾಯಿಂಟಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇದನ್ನು ಕರ್ಮ, ಪೂಜೆ, ಮನೋನಿಗ್ರಹ ಅಥವಾ ಆತ್ಮಜ್ಞಾನ ಯಾವುದಾದರೂ ಒಂದರಿಂದ ಅಥವಾ ಎರಡರಿಂದ ಅಥವಾ ಎಲ್ಲದರ ಸಹಾಯದಿಂದ ಸಾಧಿಸಿ ಮುಕ್ತರಾಗಿ. ಇದೇ ಧರ್ಮದ ಸರ್ವಸ್ವ. ಸಿದ್ಧಾಂತಗಳು, ನಂಬಿಕೆಗಳು, ಆಚಾರಗಳು, ಶಾಸ್ತ್ರಗಳು, ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನಗಳು, ಹಲವಾರು ರೂಪಗಳು, ಇವೆಲ್ಲವೂ ಕೂಡ ಗೌಣ. ಈ 4 ಯೋಗಗಳ ವಿಚಾರವಾಗಿ ಅವರೇ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ವಿಭಾಗವಾಗಿ ಪ್ರವಚನಗಳನ್ನು ನೀಡಿರ್ತಾರೆ. ಈಗ ನಾನು ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ಜ್ಞಾನೇಶ್ವರಾನಂದಜಿಯವರ 4 ಯೋಗ ಪುಸ್ತಕಗಳಿಂದ ಮಾಡಿರುವ ಕನ್ನಡ ಅನುವಾದದಿಂದ ನಾನು ಕೆಲವು ವಿಚಾರಗಳನ್ನು ತಮ್ಮ ಬಳಿ ಇಡ್ತೇನೆ. ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ಜ್ಞಾನೇಶ್ವರಾನಂದಜಿಯವರು ಶಿಕಾಗೋದ ವೇದಾಂತ ಸೊಸೈಟಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಕೊಟ್ಟ ಪ್ರವಚನಗಳು ಇವು. ಈ ಪ್ರವಚನಗಳ ಮಾಲಿಕೆಯೇ ಈಗ ನಮಗೆ ಈ ಪುಸ್ತಕದ ರೂಪದಲ್ಲಿ ದೊರೀತಾ ಇದೆ. ಇದು ಬಹಳ ಉತ್ತಮವಾದ ಒಂದು ಪುಸ್ತಕ, 4 ಯೋಗಗಳದ್ದು. ಇದು ಒಂದು ತಾವೆಲ್ಲ ಓದಬೇಕಾಗಿರುವಂತಹ ಪುಸ್ತಕ. ಆ ಪುಸ್ತಕದಿಂದ ನಾನೀಗ ಓದ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ. Okay. So today I was supposed to speak in English, so I will tell those points again. This is Swami Vivekananda has said that each and every soul has the purity as its inner characteristics. So we have to bring this purity, the effulgence of our pure Atman outside. So this can happen when we control our internal and external nature. And that is the aim of each and every soul. This can be done either by karma that is through action, or by worship, that is through devotion, or by controlling the mind, that is through Raja Yoga, through yoga, or through self-knowledge that comes through the practice of Atma Jnana, that is contemplating on our real self. So you can do it either by one or by two or the combination of all these things. So we had to practice all this for the sake of liberation, and this is the essence of all the religion, all the worships and all the practices. Then the Shastras, the scriptures, the temples and other forms becomes secondary. So that is the important thing, and this 4 yogas based on Swamiji's 4 yoga was the transcription of the lectures given by Swami Jnaneshwaranandaji in the Chicago Vedanta Society, and the translator found this was a wonderful compilation of Swamiji's idea. So he wrote a letter to the minister of Chicago Vedanta Society, Swami Bhashyananda, who gave the permission with all blessings. So I am going to read some selected portions about that Bhakti Yoga. So how to develop the pure love towards God, the path of developing the pure love towards God, that is called Divya Prema. So the human being has the emotions. There are no human beings without any emotion. So whatever we do, whatever we feel for others, is nothing but the expression of our emotions which are internal to us. So when we see some people, when we interact at our own people, like our friends, our beloved, our daughter, our son, our mother, our father, whoever it may be, an expression of love comes out. And this kind of expression of love or hatredness is so natural to us. But the important thing is, if we purify this worldly love, then it becomes a path of Divya Prema, the perfection. So the important aspect of the Bhakti Yoga is that we have to show to our Ishtadevata, the God, the same love that we show for our beloveds. So the main aim of Bhakti Yoga is to make this natural love, which is dormant inside, into a divine love. In fact, the love that we show to our own people is nothing but the transformation or the modification of the love which is divine. When we show the love towards others, it is nothing but the modified expression of the love towards God. So once we know this secret of love, that love becomes purified, and this pure love becomes a Sarvashakta. It becomes very powerful. So by purifying this expression, this emotion, and then expanding it, enlarging it, we go slowly towards God and we realize Him. So remember that the God is prema, and the prema itself is God. And the God is expressed through this prema. Then this prema, the pure love, becomes one with each other. This is the essence of Bhagavata. In Bhagavata, we see the love of Radha merges with Krishna. The prema itself takes a shape, the prema akara, that is prema kaya, the prema vritti, that goes out of the body and merges with its beloved. So this kind of love is extraterrestrial. It goes off the body. When the prema becomes pure, it goes off the body, and there is no need of being near towards that. It can travel to any distance, and it can communicate with the beloved. So always we should remember that this kind of force, the force of bhakti, it has shaken the heart of the human being. This bhakti is embedded in the Vedas and Shastras. So the human being must purify this prema and start traveling in the path of bhakti. And this bhakti yoga itself is nothing but the vijnana of the Atman and the vijnana of the Jivatman. Here the Jivatma means the bound soul, and the Paramatma is the soul which the prema develops to reach him. So with this kind of emotion, with this kind of feelings, through bhakti we can unite everything. When a devotee is filled with the love of God, when the picture of the heart is filled with love, he will not hate anybody. He will not show his anger. So the first sign of a devotee is that he loves each and everybody. And he will be longing to see God always. But once he sees the God, he starts seeing his God in each and every being. That's what we have to do. We have to expand this love and take it to such a pinnacle that slowly it purifies our heart and we start loving this whole world. So the bhakta should have an inseparable bhakti towards his Ishtadevata. If there is such a bhakti which is constantly flowing in his heart, it becomes a nishtha. When this nishtha is developed through bhakti, the panditya, that is the scholarly debate and the logics, all these things will wither away. If somebody has this kind of the panditya or the great knowledge about scriptures and all, it will be very, very thin. Something like the great Chaitanya Deva himself was a great scholar of all the darshanas. But once he got the taste of the Krishna Bhakti, all this ahankara, the ego of the scholarship, died away, melted away. So such kind of the devotees who have developed the real love towards God, they are called adhikari or patri. So in the 13th chapter of Gita, Sri Krishna says how a devotee should be. He says that he should have the purity of mind and he should have the loyalty towards his God, that is Nishtha, and he should have the faith in God, and he should have the natural bhakti. The natural bhakti means that he loves his supreme God as his own, and he will not look at the other gods and goddesses at all. This story we see in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, where Sri Ramakrishna tells about the Gopikas of the Vrindavan when Akrura takes Sri Krishna to Mathura to kill Kamsa. After some time, they go to Mathura to see Krishna. And there they will be seeing a Krishna who is having a crown on his head like any princess, and his attire was totally different from what he was having when he was roaming with them in Vrindavan with a feather of peacock and with a flute and all that. When they see him, they bend their head down and they talk to each other, telling that, who is this person? Who is this another person? And by seeing this person, we may lose our chastity. By seeing the another person, that is called Parapurusha, we may lose the chastity. That means to say that they were worshipping the Krishna in a specific form, and they were not ready to see or worship Krishna in some other form. So that is the kind of bhakti we have to develop, even though it looks like dogmatic in the initial stages. We have to have such kind of bhakti. That is called, the three types of bhakti is there: Tivra, intense; Madhya, moderate; Manda, which is very dull or primary. So this kind of gopikas that we saw in the previous examples are like the Tivra Bhaktas. They do not have any barrier between this, their God, and and themselves. So to have this pure love, what we have to do? Swamiji is explaining here. The love consists of 4 letters, L-O-V-E. The L means longing. It represents the longing for God. Then O means oneness. We should feel the oneness with God. And what this Bhakta is doing all these years, what he wants, he wants the oneness with God. That is why he is doing all these things, all the practices of spirituality. So L means longing, and O means oneness. And to have this oneness, what he has to do is to give up the vanity. So once he give up this vanity of life, then the Bhakta will enter into E, that is nothing but ecstasy. So once what happens in the process of any yoga is that we start developing a sort of ego, a false ego, that I have done so much of sadhana, I have done so much of mantra, I have done so much of fasting, I have done so much of vrata. All this false vanity. It is not that vanity of our kind of vanity which we develop. This will not help. But the Bhakta, who is also intensely practicing this Bhakti Yoga, in the process of that it becomes a hindrance, antaraya. What is that? I am a very good Bhakta. I am a very big devotee of God. So once that kind of ahankara is developed, naturally the God will show a better devotee to his own devotees and explain that this will not work. We see several examples in the great devotees of God. We see in the Namadeva and Bhakta Kumbhara how Bhakta Kumbhara taught Namadeva about the kind of devotion that he has to develop. That we have seen that. And similarly, we have seen how Shri Krishna teaches Narada about his lacuna in the bhakti, because in the process of doing the practices, we also develop this sort of ego. So when we overcome this vanity, where we end up is, we end up in a ecstasy. So this is called bhava. That bhava shuddhi, when we have this bhava shuddhi, then it becomes bhava siddhi. So we have to cross these things to merge with God. So there are three types of bhakti based on this kind of the intensity, that is called three types of bhakti. One is the Vaidhi bhakti, another is Raganu bhakti, another is Prema bhakti. Vaidhi bhakti means, it comes out of the word vidhi, where there will be a sort of imposition either by the scriptures or we self-impose ourselves to do certain types of rituals, some pujas, some vratas, some niyamas, impose on ourselves, and we start practicing it, which is always required initially. It's called Vaidhi bhakti. And second comes is Raganu bhakti. In this Raganu bhakti, it comes, the raga is developed out of bhakti. In this condition, the bhakta will ask so many worldly things from him. I want the peace of mind. I want more and more bhakti from you. You remove my difficulty. You remove all my financial difficulty. You remove the difficulties of my relatives, my friends, my son, my children. You get a medical seat for my son. All this can come in this kind of Raganu bhakti, where there will be the worldly desires that we ask, and also the spiritual boons, what we call vara. All this also can be asked when we are practicing this Raganu bhakti. But the real bhakti is the Prema bhakti. That Prema bhakti is that when it comes from, when we say, as Sri Ramakrishna puts in Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, puts in his Gospel, that Naham Naham Tuhu Tuhu. Not me, but you. In this, there will be no ego of the bhakta at all. There will be a constant flow of prema. This kind of prema, which becomes so big that the bhakta feels that the God is helpless. And he, instead of asking him, instead of asking something from him, he starts asking the God himself whether he wants something from him, myself. That is, we can see the classic example in Yashoda. She thought that the Supreme God has her own son, the helpless infant, helpless child, whom she has to take care of him. Even in spite of seeing the Vishwarupa Darshana, he showed Brahmanda Darshana when he ate some mud or clay. When he opened his mouth, he showed the whole Brahmanda in him. And she was struck with awe, but she did not give up that kind of the putra prema towards Lord. She thought that she has to feed him, she has to take care of him, she has to oversee him. He may fall down. Such kind of bhakti is extraordinary bhakti that we see in the case of Yashoda, where the similar example we see in the case of Radha, when the Radha was not there to take care of Krishna, and some other Gopika Stri was taking care of her, Shri Krishna, and she expresses that that particular Gopika cannot take care of Shri Krishna well. And another Gopika comments that, why you are so much egoistic? Then she says, no, that is not the case of ego, but it is the kind of attitude. And in that attitude, you will be having the kind of, that you cannot think that the God is something supreme and we have to ask from Him. Instead, this kind of bhakti is a constant flow, a selfless condition where you will not have anything to ask, but you will be asking the union, and other than this union of God and the bhakta, you don't need anything. That is the supreme bhakti that we have to develop. So, in the case of Vaidhi bhakti, we can compare it to the small plant which is hedged. We have to take care of the sapling which is inside the hedge, otherwise these worldly animals, these worldly flocks will eat away our bhakti. So important is that in the initial stages we have to do this practice, we have to ensure that we will not give up the practice, the daily practice. If we think that we are having the devotion already, why should we do all this? That will not happen. So that is important. After once it develops into a huge banyan tree like, we can tie the elephant also. So this is the kind of Vaidhi bhakti, and then once it becomes a Raga bhakti and Raghana bhakti, then everything becomes all right. So we have to see this. Once this kind of the devotion, once we develop, then slowly and surely we will be able to realize the God. So when we are progressing through the path of devotion, how to judge ourselves? So we can evaluate our devotion to God with this litmus test. One thing is that whether we have given up the ego. Once we surrender to God, once we give our life to God, there is nothing that we have to do. Whatever God desires, whatever He says, that only will be our life. This we can see in the life of Girish Chandra Ghosh, when he begs that I cannot do any sort of practice. Sri Ramakrishna finally says, okay, you give your power of attorney. Power of attorney means you have given up all your legal powers to another person to handle all your possessions and properties, whatever you have. So Sri Ramakrishna asks for the power of attorney. Girish Chandra Ghosh gives that. That means he cannot think anything by himself. So throughout his life, he was not perturbed by anything at all, because he had given up all his desires, all his will at the feet of the Lord. So once we feel that I will do something, this should happen like this, that should happen not like this, then that means to say that we have not given up the ego, we have not surrendered to God, and we are thinking that we can do something. Once that comes, then the God fades away and our ego overpowers us. So the complete surrenderness means complete surrenderness of the thinking itself, the volition itself should be given to the God. And the bhakta should have a kind of bliss in his heart. Whatever may be happening outside, if we have a kind of bliss, the devotional bliss, because the God is Satchidananda. Another form of God is the bliss itself. If really there is a presence of God in our heart, we must be blissful. There is no other feeling other than bliss. We may be having a lot of problems in our life. If the bliss is there, that means to say that we are devoted to God, and God is always there in our heart. Let us hope and let us try to develop that kind of prema bhakti, the intense devotion to God, and always have the ecstasy, the ananda of the God who is sitting in our heart, the Ananda Murti. When we are expressing this happiness, this bliss, this joy in each and every action of our life, that means to say that we are developing devotion and we are moving towards our Ishtadevata. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.